Her fingertips pressed into his shoulders as his breathing grew uneven near her neck. "Tell me," she breathed, and when he spoke, his voice broke. "You're the one thing that's ever stripped away my composure. You've come this far. Keep going. Don't forget to share, and subscribe to stay updated on what unfolds when restraint crumbles and passion rules. Boston, 6 p.m. to 2 hours before my escape beat. Never witnessed a room with so many reflective surfaces. Mirrors covered every wall from bottom to top, each one framed in gold, pristine and unforgiving. Every reflection showed me, yet none resembled someone I recognized. Just a young woman draped in cream silk, a china figurine with crimson lips, and eyes like undisturbed water. Beautiful, voiceless, expendable. "Stop moving," my father commanded sharply, adjusting the lace at my shoulder. His breath reeked of liquor and anxiety. "You're worsening it." "I can't get air," I murmured. "You'll manage fine after this ends." I gazed down at my hands. The gloves first on me were painfully tight, fitting somehow. Everything about this day was the gown was specially ordered from Italy. The ceremony would take place in a Catholic cathedral that reeked of ancient wealth and buried secrets. 300 invitations had been sent. I recognized perhaps 5 names, and standing at that altar would be Damien Blackwood, a man I'd exchanged words with exactly once. He hadn't acknowledged me then. Either my family operated by unwritten laws, inherited like heirloom silver. Money isn't discussed. Men aren't questioned. And you never, ever abandon an agreement once signatures are dry. Particularly when millions are owed and your father's signature covers every line dot my value had been calculated in private meetings. I discovered the wedding through my own invitation. My bedroom window faced the church's rear courtyard. Below, white roses formed perfect arcs around marble saints whose gazes seemed to track my movement. Light rain had begun, delicate, like a caution. I touched my forehead to the glass, breathing against the cool condensation. What if I simply left? The thought had visited me countless times before, but now it didn't feel like imagination. It felt like friction, like the tension before something snaps. I stepped away from the window. Then I reached into the closet and retrieved the dark shoes I'd concealed beneath the dress bag. Downstairs, preparations for the processional were underway. My father issued final instructions. The guests whispered by candlelight, drinking champagne they hadn't purchased, pretending they weren't witnessing a young woman being traded in silk. I slipped through the service entrance near the vestry, pulse hammering like battle drums. I refused to look behind me. Outside, the drizzle had intensified to proper rain. Boston's air embraced me, damp, cutting, honest. I gathered my skirts and ran, the satin trailing across cobblestones like a specter's tail. Icy water soaked through my bodice. My exposed shoulders shook. My breath misted in short, panicked bursts. Every fiber of my being screamed, "Leave now." I reached the gates. The iron felt freezing under my palms. I pushed them open with all my remaining strength and stopped cold. There he stood, positioned. Beneath the flickering street lamp, charcoal suit drenched, rain streaming from his angular jaw. Damien Blackwood didn't resemble a groom. He looked like a man carved from shadows and tempests. His hands rested in his pockets. His hair was slicked, back dripping. His eyes found mine like magnets forged from ice. He had been waiting. He understood. "You're behind schedule," he said. His voice was quiet, controlled, deeper than I recalled. It resonated in my core. I stepped backward. "You followed me? I predicted you." He advanced, measured and unhurried, like a predator with no need for haste. I backed against the wrought iron gate. My lungs constricted. "I won't do this," I declared. You can report whatever you want to my father, but I refuse to marry a stranger to settle his debts. He stepped 3 feet away. Rain poured between us. I could detect his scent, cedar and whiskey, even soaked. Everything about him remained controlled except his eyes. His eyes weren't calm whatsoever. You're not marrying a stranger, he said. Softly, I blinked. What? You think this concerns a debt? A signature on papers? His voice sharpened. Your father's arrangement was the opening, but you were always the objective. What does that mean? He moved closer. I stayed put. You don't remember me, do you? His tone cracked slightly. Naturally, you don't. He looked away briefly. Rain dripped from his lashes. Then his gaze snapped back to mine, wild now, unguarded. I waited for you once before, he said, and you never appeared. I didn't understand. My mind scrambled, searching for memories that weren't there. You gave me a cupcake, he said suddenly. At a foster home outside Austin 10 years ago. I was 16. You were, 11? The air left my lungs. I did remember. The boy in the corner who never spoke, who flinched when touched. I'd offered him a cupcake with excessive frosting and said, "Happy birthday," because no one else had. I didn't know that was you, I said. My voice felt thin. I never forgot. He stepped into the final space between us, rain cascading down both, our faces like silk threads unraveling. His hand cupped my jaw. You're mine now, Elena, he whispered. And I don't release things twice. Boston, 6:37 p.m. The moment I realized no one would save me. You're mine now, Elena, and I don't release things twice. His voice was rain and steel and something deeper. Something that made my knees shake against the slick stones beneath me. I should have pulled away, screamed, fought. Instead, I remained still. The cold couldn't reach me anymore. Not with his hand on my jaw, I slapped it away hard. His head turned slightly from the impact, but he didn't flinch. The corner of his mouth lifted barely. There she is, he said. What's wrong with you? I snapped. You think this is romantic? Stalking me, cornering me like some animal? Damon's eyes darkened, not with anger, but with calculation. If I thought romance would work on you, I might have attempted it, he said calmly. But you don't want sweetness, you want truth. I want my life back. You surrendered it when you let him sell you. The words hit like a slap, harder than mine. You think I had a choice? I hissed. You think I wanted to stand before strangers like a pawn being moved across a board I didn't even know I was on? No, he said. But I do think you're strong enough not to pretend you're helpless. I stared at him, breath ragged. Rain continued falling between us, but it might as well have been fire. You think you know me? I remember a girl who entered a room full of broken boys and offered me a cupcake like it could repair anything, like it could repair me. He paused. His voice dropped. No one had ever looked at me like I mattered. You did for 10 seconds and it rewired everything. I hated how my heart clenched at that. You were a child, I muttered. That memory doesn't mean you get to possess me now. I don't possess you, Damien said quietly. But I do know what I've waited for, and I'm not letting it slip away again. He reached for me again. This time, I stepped back first. No, I said. I'm not returning to that church. I'm not standing in that dress under those lights just so you can feel like you've finally won something. His jaw ticked. Then don't, he said. I blinked. What? I canceled the ceremony the moment you ran. Told them you were ill. The guests were dismissed 10 minutes ago. You what? I never wanted a public spectacle. That was for your father. I just wanted you in my house, my world, on my terms. I stared at him, stunned by the control, the calculation. He'd anticipated every step, even my rebellion. I hated how brilliant it was. A black car pulled up behind him, sleek, silent, like it had materialized from mist. He stepped aside, gestured toward the open rear door. You can come now, or you can walk barefoot in a storm, soaked to the bone, and wait for someone else to help. But there won't be anyone. You already know that. I didn't move. He stepped forward again, leaned down just enough that I could feel the heat of his breath through the rain. I'm not going to harm you, Elena. I never will, he said. But you are. Coming with me, whether you walk or I carry you. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. I looked at the gate behind me. Empty street, no headlights, no escape. I hated him for being right. I hated myself more for wanting to believe he wouldn't break me. I stepped toward the car. He opened the door and waited, silent. I slid inside. The interior was dark leather and silence. The windows fogged slightly from the contrast of my soaked skin and the heated air. I sat rigid, fists clenched in my lap, every sense alert. Damien entered a moment later, shut the door, and the world fell quiet. Rain drummed against the roof. The driver pulled away. For a long moment, we said nothing. You didn't have to wait outside, I said, voice low. I wanted to. Why? He didn't look at me. Because I knew you wouldn't believe I cared unless I got. What to? I turned to face him. You scare me, I admitted. His head turned slowly, eyes locked on mine. Good, my heart stuttered. Why? Because fear means you're paying attention, he said. And I'd rather have your fear than your indifference. At least fear is real. That's twisted. Maybe, he said, but it's honest. The car curved through. Downtown, then onto a private road flanked by trees, gated property, long driveway. The kind of home you only see in glossy magazines under headlines like Where Power Lives. The car stopped. Damien opened his door. This time he didn't wait. He came around, opened mine, held out his hand. Not as a gentleman, but as a command. I stared at it. Then I took it. His fingers closed around mine, firm, warm, certain. No room for second-guessing. He led me up marble steps, through towering black doors, and into a house that whispered wealth with every inch of silence. No servants in sight, no warmth either. Just him and me, in a locked world that had no exit. Blackwood Estate, 7:12 p.m. The door closed behind me, and the world I knew disappeared. The house was too quiet, too perfect. Marble floors stretched beneath golden chandeliers. Dark wood paneled the walls like the inside of a jewelry box. Glass doors lined the corridor, opening to manicured courtyards where nothing looked alive, only curated. I followed Damien through the entryway, dripping rainwater across what appeared to be a $10,000 rug. He didn't comment. He didn't speak at all. I could hear the sound of my wet dress clinging to my legs, my breath, my heartbeat. His silence was heavier than his footsteps. We passed a hallway of portraits, all oil, all unfamiliar. No family photos, no childhood smiles, just strangers in heavy frames watching me with blank stares. Who are they? I asked. Damien didn't turn. People who built the world I now own. Cold, accurate, and utterly unrelatable. We stopped in front of black double doors. He opened them without a word. This is your room. I stepped inside. It was beautiful, of course. King-size bed, velvet drapes, a fireplace already burning low. The window overlooked a garden with trimmed hedges shaped like spirals. A bathroom, larger than my first apartment, and yet it felt sterile, like someone had Googled what a woman might like and then designed a 5-star prison. I turned to him. How many other women have you put in this room? His brow ticked. None. I couldn't tell if that scared me more. He handed me a key card. Your room is yours, locked from the inside. No one enters unless you open it. Except you, I'm guessing. Damon's. lips curved just barely. Even I respect locked doors. If I wanted a pet, I'd buy one. I took the card not because I trusted him, but because it was the only thing in this house that felt like mine. When he left, I didn't unpack. I wandered. There were no cameras, no guards, but somehow I knew I was being watched. The estate was massive, a maze of mirrored halls and high ceilings. Each room was more extravagant than the last. A private theater, an indoor lap pool, a library with shelves that stretched 3 floors, but not one photograph. No signs of real life. It was a house designed for power, not people. In the dining room, a long mahogany table gleamed under antique chandeliers. There were 2 place settings, one at each end. When Damien entered, he didn't sit next to me. He didn't speak right away, either. Just uncorked a bottle of wine, poured 2 glasses, and handed one across the vast table like we were business associates signing a treaty. I didn't drink it. Am I supposed to thank you? I said. His eyes flicked up. For what? For saving me from a wedding you planned? I didn't plan the wedding. Your father did. But you approved it. I tolerated it. There's a difference. He finally looked at me. Really looked. And I hated how steady he was, how unreadable. What do you want from me, Damien? He tilted his head. Your attention. I laughed bitterly. You already have that. Do I? He paused. I want you to stop pretending you don't feel anything. Silence fell like a guillotine. He sipped his wine. I watched him, waiting for the next command, the next control play, but none came. Just silence and the flicker of candlelight across crystal and bone china. Later that night, I stood by the window of my room. The rain had slowed to mist. The garden outside gleamed under moonlight like a secret only this house knew. I couldn't sleep. Not because of fear, because of him. He hadn't touched me, hadn't yelled, hadn't even locked me in. But somehow I felt more trapped than ever. It wasn't the walls. It was the weight of his gaze, the certainty in his voice, the sense that every move I made had already been calculated in advance. I hated how much space he took up in my mind. And somewhere beneath that hate, I felt heat. There was a knock. I tensed. My hand went to the key card instinctively. But I didn't lock the door. I opened it. He stood there barefoot, no jacket, shirt. Sleeves rolled to his elbows, hair still damp from earlier. Damien didn't step in. He just looked at me. And for the first time, I saw something human in those steel eyes. Not weakness, but restraint. I just wanted to make sure you had what you needed, he said. I don't need anything from you. His jaw flexed. Not even answers? My breath caught. No, I lied. He didn't call me on it. He just nodded once, like he'd filed that response into some mental folder labeled "in progress." Then he said something I didn't expect. I used to dream about that cupcake. My heart skipped. You're serious? I remember the sprinkles. They were blue. I thought that meant something. I swallowed hard. It didn't. His mouth twisted. That's what I told myself too. Until I saw you again. And with that, he turned, left, didn't try to enter. Didn't touch me. Didn't threaten. Just left me standing there, heart racing, skin burning, surrounded by more luxury than I'd ever seen, feeling like the poorest girl in the world. Blackwood. Estate 11:03 p.m. I heard him before I saw him. A crash, not loud, but distinct, like glass meeting marble. I froze. For a house so obsessed with silence, any noise felt like a crime. I slipped into my slippers, pulled the silk robe tighter around my waist, and opened my bedroom door. The hallway was dim. Only the fireplace down the corridor cast a faint orange flicker across the floors. Shadows stretched long and tall, cold against my bare feet. The sound had come from the study. I found him slumped in the leather armchair, a glass of something dark spilled across the floor. The tumbler lay cracked near his feet. Damien didn't look up when I stepped in. His jacket was off, shirt half unbuttoned, hair messier than I'd ever seen it. One elbow rested on the armrest. The other hand pressed against his forehead like he was trying to hold something inside that was clawing. "Take it out. You drink alone?" I asked quietly. He didn't jump. Just said sometimes. I stepped closer. The scent hit me first, whiskey and cedar and something faintly metallic. Blood. "Are you hurt?" He didn't move. "Glass," he said. I squeezed too hard. His right palm had a shallow cut, thin line, already clotting. "I'll get the kit." The first aid box was in the guest bathroom. I grabbed it, then returned and knelt in front of him without asking. Years of tending to my father's hangovers and gambling bruises had trained my hands to move without thought. But Damien wasn't drunk. He was something else entirely. "I can handle it," he muttered. "You clearly can't." He didn't argue further, just watched as I cleaned the wound, applied salve, and wrapped gauze with practiced ease. His skin was warm under. My touch, tense like he didn't know what gentleness felt like. When I finished, I looked up and realized how close we were. My knees on the carpet, his legs on either side of me, his face tilted down, our eyes locked in a kind of stillness that made the air shift. "I've seen that look before," he said softly. "What look?" "The one you're giving me now, like you're waiting to see if I'll break." "Are you going to?" "I already did, years ago." The confession hung between us, raw and simple. No poetry, no defense, just truth. I sat back on my heels, studying him. "You always this good at hiding it? Only around people who matter?" I blinked. "That's supposed to flatter me? It's supposed to warn you." A silence stretched. Not heavy, just dense, like snow before an avalanche. Then I asked the question I'd avoided since I walked through his gates. "Why me?" He leaned back. The firelight caught the edge of his cheekbone, sharp as a blade. "You were kind to me when you didn't have to be. That doesn't fade. That was a cupcake, Damien. I was 11. "You were kind," he repeated. And I remembered that's not love, but it's more than indifference. His honesty was too much, too steady. I needed him to be worse than this, colder, crueler. But he wasn't. He was broken, maybe, but never hollow. I stood to leave. I couldn't handle the heat crawling up my neck. Not from the fire, from him. But before I reached the door, he spoke. Again, quieter this time. "I used to watch the hallway when I was a kid, hoping you'd walk by again, with another cupcake." I turned. "You could have said something. I didn't want to ruin the only good memory I had." My chest tightened. "You talk like you're still that boy." "In some ways," he said, "I am. I didn't leave." I stepped closer instead, put my hand lightly, barely, on his shoulder. A test. He didn't flinch. But he did close his eyes just for a second, like my touch steadied him or broke something open. "You're not who I expected," I said. "And who did you expect?" "Someone colder, scarier." He opened his eyes. "You haven't seen all of me yet. But promise." And his voice wasn't a threat. It was a warning and maybe a plea. That night, I didn't lock my door. Not because I trusted him, but because for the first time, I wanted to know what would happen if I stopped running. Blackwood Estate, 1:46 a.m. Then came the storm. The first crack of thunder split the sky like a bone. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. The rain had turned violent, hammering the windows like fists. Wind howled down the marble halls, rattling the glass doors I hadn't locked. Then darkness. The power went out. The room plunged into silence, pierced only by the storm outside. No hum of electricity, no artificial glow, just black. I fumbled for my phone. Dead, of course. I got up, wrapped myself in my robe, and stepped into the corridor. Faint flickers of emergency backup lights pulsed along the floorboards, barely enough to see. The power system had failed before the generators could kick in. The house, so pristine by day, now felt like a labyrinth, huge, hollow. Watching, I didn't know where I was going until I did. My feet took me to the study. He was already there. Damien stood by the fireplace, feeding it manually with logs, shirt sleeves pushed up, no jacket, just him. Raw and shadowed by firelight, he turned when he heard me. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, stepping closer. "Power's gone," I noticed. "Your billion-dollar estate doesn't have a working backup generator?" "It does. It just doesn't like being woken up at 2 a.m. He paused. "Neither do I." But his voice didn't match the words. There was a softness to it, a layer of calm. He was glad I'd come. I stood across from him, both of us bathed in the orange light of the fire. The storm outside made the walls tremble. He handed me a glass of water. "No wine, no games." I drank, and when I met his gaze, he was already watching me. Not with cold control, but something much more dangerous. "Elena," he said, low and steady, "why didn't you lock your door tonight?" I froze. "You checked?" I asked. I had to check. I swallowed, and if it had been locked, I would have walked away. And because it wasn't, he stepped closer. I waited for you to come to me. And if I hadn't, he moved again, just inches, close enough that the firelight cast both our shadows into one. I still would have waited. The air between us pulled. Tight, I felt it in my spine, in my stomach, in the pulse behind my ears. "I don't know what you want from me," I whispered. "Yes, you do." His voice was softer now, sure, like velvet wrapping around glass. "You don't want to be owned," he said. "I get that. But don't lie to me or yourself and say you don't want anything." I felt heat rise to my face. I hated that he was right. I hated how my skin came alive just from his nearness. I hated most of all that I wanted. He moved again, just inches, close enough that the firelight cast both our shadows into one. "I don't want you to submit," he said. "I want you to choose." I met his eyes, green, gray, storm-lit. "And if I say no?" "I'll live with it, but you'll hate it, probably." I let out a breath, a laugh, tired, trembling. "You're dangerous." "So, are you?" He said dot, then he reached up slowly. Gave me every chance to step away. I didn't. His hand cupped the side of my face, fingers threading into the damp ends of my hair. His thumb traced my cheekbone. My breath caught. "You're not scared," he murmured. "I am," I whispered. He tilted his forehead to mine, but not of me. The kiss didn't start sweet. It started like an avalanche. His mouth crashed into mine, hot, firm, consuming, and I didn't hold back. My fingers gripped his shirt, pulled him closer, demanding more. Years of restraint unraveled in seconds. His hands gripped my waist, lifted me slightly. My back hit the wall beside the fireplace, cold stone, hot mouth. His knee slotted between mine, parting me instinctively. I gasped. His lips moved to my jaw, my neck, my shoulder. Everywhere he touched felt claimed. "You drive me insane," he breathed. "Then stop," I panted. "I can't." He kissed me again, harder, deeper, like he was afraid this moment would be taken. And I kissed back like I didn't care if it was. I pulled. Away first, not from fear, from fire. I needed air. He let me go, barely. We stood there, chests rising and falling in sync, sweat glistening where skin had met dot outside. The thunder rolled again. Inside, silence fell, but not the kind that meant distance. The kind that said, "We've crossed the line and there's no going back. Now you know," he said. "What happens when you stop running?" Blackwood Estate, 2:14 a.m. The storm was still outside, but the wildfire was in here. He kissed me like he hadn't been allowed to touch anything real for years, and I kissed him back like I was tired of pretending I didn't burn. The wall was hard behind me. Damon's body was harder. His hand slid up the backs of my thighs, then gripped my hips with a possessiveness that made my breath hitch. "Say stop," he said against my lips. I didn't. Instead, I pulled his shirt up and over his head. His chest was solid, smooth muscle, ridged stomach, a faint scar across his ribs. Like a story he hadn't told yet. I pressed my palms to his skin, tracing the heat. He hissed through his teeth. "Elena," I leaned in. "Don't stop." He didn't. He scooped me into his arms with ease, carried me through the dark hallway as if I weighed nothing. His room was twice the size of mine, darker, warmer. A bed with black linen sheets, heavy curtains half drawn, shadows stretching like fingers across the floor. He sat me down on the bed, breathing hard, and then he paused, only for a moment, just to look at me. I realized he was waiting for fear, for hesitation, for me to pull away. I didn't. I reached for the belt of my robe, undid it slowly, let it fall. His eyes darkened. "You're beautiful," he said like it hurt. I crawled backward onto the sheets. "Then show me," he followed. And when he kissed me this time, it wasn't frantic. It was deliberate, measured. He was learning every inch of me with his mouth, my collarbone, the slope of my breast, the dip of my stomach. His hand slid beneath my underwear, knuckles brushing heat. I arched out. He didn't speak, didn't rush, just moved lower, lips trailing. A path down my body until his mouth met skin that had never been touched that way. I gasped, sharp and real and utterly unfiltered. His tongue was firm, controlled. His hand anchored my hips as I twisted beneath him, breath breaking into fragments. It didn't take long. My back arched, my legs trembled, my name spilled out of my own lips like it belonged to someone else. And he watched all of it. When he rose again, I was panting, glowing, changed. He leaned down, mouth brushing my ear. "You are mine," he whispered. "Now and after," I answered by pulling him down. My hands went to his waistband. I undid his pants, slid them down. He was already hard and he was big, but I didn't stop. I wrapped my fingers around him, testing, curious. And he swore softly, bracing one hand against the headboard. "Elena," he ground out. "Don't tease me." "I'm not," I said. "I'm learning." He gave a rough, broken laugh. "Then come here." He positioned himself above me, arms braced, eyes locked to mine. Even now, even here, he was giving me one more chance to say no. I didn't. I nodded. He pushed in slowly. My body tensed, tight, unfamiliar. But he went gentle, controlled, 1 inch at a time, breathing through it with me. And when he was fully inside, he stilled. "Let me adjust." His forehead pressed to mine. His breath shook. "Okay?" he asked. I nodded again. "Yes." He moved. The pain faded quickly, washed away by the flood of sensation, of friction, of heat that built with every thrust. He filled me like he was made for it, like I was made for him. Our rhythm found itself. Our bodies moved like we'd done this forever, even though it was the first time. He kissed me between thrusts, said my name, told me I was perfect, that he couldn't believe I was real. I didn't recognize myself, this bold, wanting version of me who moaned into his mouth, who clawed at his back, who met him thrust for thrust until we both shattered together. Afterward, he didn't move far. He stayed inside me, chest to chest. His hand tangled in my hair, my leg draped over his hip, sweat cooling on our skin. The storm outside had started to die down. Inside, everything was still warm, unreal. "I didn't expect you," he said, voice rough. "Not like this." "You mean you didn't expect me to want you back?" His jaw flexed. I didn't dare. I touched his face, traced the scar on his ribs, then whispered, "I want all of you. Even the parts you try to bury." He swallowed hard. I've buried a lot. Then, dig. We lay there in silence. No games, no roles, just skin and truth and two hearts that didn't know how to lie in the dark. I'd given him my body tonight, but he'd given me more. He'd let go, and so had I. Blackwood Estate, 917 ME woke up thinking I was safe. The sun had just begun to pour through the curtains when I opened my eyes. Damien wasn't in bed, but the sheets beside me were still warm. I smiled, a stunned thing. My body still ached in the best way. My skin hummed from where his hands had been. For the first time in weeks, maybe years, I felt whole, desired, chosen. I slipped into his shirt, padded barefoot through the hall. The house felt different, lighter, until I turned the corner and saw her dot tall. Red lips, blonde waves, legs like they belonged on a runway, and stilettos sharp enough to kill. She was sitting on the velvet couch in the foyer like she owned the place, and Damien stood across from her, jaw tight, arms folded. I stopped. So did she. Her eyes slid over me like I was gum on the sole of her Labutin. Well, she said, smiling like venom. So it's true you do have a type, Naomi, Damien said tightly. This isn't your business? Really? Because she's all over the tabloids. Virgin heiress auctioned in scandalous debt marriage to elusive billionaire, and here I thought you liked women who didn't need a rescue. My stomach dropped. I walked in anyway, looked Damien dead in the eye. You going to tell me who she is? Naomi stood, draped herself across the arm of a couch like a bored cat. Business and pleasure, mostly the latter. I didn't invite her, Damien said. But you let her in. I snapped at Naomi, smiled wider. You're quick. That'll help once the fantasy wears off and you realize what you are. Which is what? Her eyes glittered. A headline, a favor, a payment. Damien stepped forward. Enough. But I'd already stopped listening because of something in his face. Something hesitant, not denial, not rage, guilt. You told her? I asked, my voice quieter now. About my father, the contract. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. The floor fell out from under me. You said it wasn't about that.